Hey guys, the next question for today is about the India's target. India targets net zero carbon emission by 2070. So, after a long rejection of net zero target at the COP26 summit in Glasgow, Russia, India pledged to achieve net zero emission as part of 5-point action plan, which PM Modi referred to as 5 nectar element Panchamrit. So in this Panchamrit, that is 5-point action plan, PM Modi stressed about the pledge to achieve net zero emission. Now, what is the requirement for this particular step? First of all, India being a developing economy, still it is heavily reliant on oil and coal, the most polluting fossil fuel, which makes up to 70% of the energy production. And the next one being the coal consumption in the country, it further increased 39% over the last decade. Then India, it's the world's third biggest emitter of greenhouse gas after China and US. So these are the main reasons why we need to control our emissions. Now, what are the challenges in it? India's economic priority mostly focused on domestic issue. Then country's energy demand expected to rise sharply as economy continues on its growth trajectory. So India's economic priority is focused on domestic issue, and also our country's energy demand is increasing day by day. If we look at the China's aim, it aims to achieve net zero by 2060, whereas the countries like US, UK and EU, they have set the target by 2050. So these are some of the challenges. Now, what is that? India's 5-point action plan, that is Panchamrit, which PM Modi talked about. The first one being India will reach the carbon neutrality by 2070. Then we also raised India's NDC, that is nationally determined contribution, of achieving 450 gigawatt of non-fossil energy capacity to 500 gigawatt. So we increased 50 gigawatt by 2030 we have to achieve, and will fulfill the 50% of energy requirement from renewable energy sources by 2030. And we will also reduce total projected carbon emission by 1 billion tons between now and 2030. That is, in this 8-year period, we will reduce the carbon emission by billion tons. And will also reduce the carbon intensity of its economy by 45% under the Paris Agreement, to reduce the emission intensity by 33, that is to 35% by 2030. Now, what are the recommendations for the target? First one, likely to target power sector first. So we might target the power sector, for which we have to phase out the coal, and we must increase our investment in renewable resource, and we must curtail the deforestation and speed up switching to EVs. Now, next thing is active citizen participation is needed in the entire process by making them feel part of the transition process. Then, so the next one is net zero target must prioritize ambitious emission reduction to align with the global limiting of the warming to less than 1.5 degrees Celsius. We must concentrate and prioritize both those things. Reduce the global temperature to less than 1.5 degrees Celsius, and we must also achieve the net zero target eventually. Now, how can we conclude? The land-based climate action must be anchored in food first. How? Rights-based approach to help achieve zero hunger and zero emission. So we need land-based climate action and right-based approach. The net zero commitment must be backed by meaningful transparency and disclosure. So, thank you.